This week's talk on the 84 Mahasiddhas is on Darikapa, the slave king of the temple whore. And Darikapa was one of the teachers of Tilopa, you're probably familiar with, who lived between 988 and 1069, so we've got pretty good dates for him. So it gives you a good idea of about the time of Darikapa. Tilopa became one of the four main, the teachings that he gave to Tilopa became one of the four main teachings that were received by Naropa. So there's a strong lineage connection here. And he wrote Accomplishment of the Great Secret Thatness, part of the 7 sections of accomplishment. There were 7 different Mahasiddhas that collection was brought together, writings from those 7, so he was one of those. So an influential Mahasiddha. So the story is that Indrapala, king of Pataliputra, was returning from hunting a tiger that had been marauding in the countryside. And so they headed back to the palace and through the marketplace, and in the process he spied a crowd of his subjects bowing and giving reverence to someone besides himself. Well, this angered him a little bit, and so he came face to face with the Siddha Luipa, another of the Mahasiddhas. And he recognized him, and as a yogin renowned for eating only fish entrails, which is his unique characteristic. But Indrapala's anger melted away, and he greeted the yogin and said, "Come to my palace, let me provide you with fine food." And Luipa walked around the king, looking him up and down, and said, "Fish guts suit me fine." He said, "All I require is release from the wheel of birth and death. Can you give that to me?" "No," said the king, "but if you remain with us, I will give you even my kingdom if you so desire." "Are you offering me a way to deathlessness and eternal youth?" "That I will accept, Luipa replied. "All I can offer you is my kingdom and my daughter's hand in marriage," said the king. "Bah," said Luipa, "of what use are those things to me?" "Or to me," said the king, suddenly overwhelmed with revulsion for his own way of life. "Wearing a crown isn't all that much in the great scheme of things, and the wielding power has many evil repercussions." The king rode away deep in thought. Several days later, the king called his Brahmin minister to him for a private conference and confessed that he had been reviewing his life and that he had come to the startling conclusion that he was not a happy man. The life of luxury, rich food, fine clothes had not brought him any sense of satisfaction or accomplishment. "I have decided to abdicate in favor of my son and spend the rest of my life practicing the dharma," said the king. So the king turned it over to his son. He was crowned and government passed on to him. And the king and his minister, now no better off than the poorest of beggars, set off on their own way to the cremation ground where Luipa was said to have been known to frequent. The yogin initiated both of them into the mandala of Sambhara, that's chakra Sambhara. However, as neither of them had anything to offer in return, they agreed to offer to him their bodies and become his slaves. So Luipa and his 2 initiates traveled to Orissa and eventually came to Jantipur, and then which is famed for its great temple, which housed 700 dancing girls devoted to the service of the god. Luipa took his slaves with him to the temple, where he sought out Darima, a mistress of the temple whores, but were barred by guards. Luipa called out, "I have a male slave that may interest you, mistress. If I like what I see, I might be interested in buying him," drawled a bored voice from within. The doors opened, and out came an extraordinarily beautiful woman with an exquisite figure and a hint of jaded petulance. Tilopa presented the king turned slave, and Darima examined him, and then she offered to Siddha a large sum of gold. The yogin accepted the offer on 2 conditions. First, the slave was to have a room to himself and always be able to sleep alone. And second, he was to be released from service as soon as he had earned back his purchase price. And Darima agreed. So for 12 years, the king served Darima admirably. He washed her feet, massaged her body, saw to the careful preparation of her food, and attended to her every need. But he never once forgot his guru's instruction. He spent every day in service to his mistress and every night meditating. The other servants grew to love and respect him for his many kindnesses. In time, Darima made him master of her household. One day, a very wealthy king arrived with every intention of an orgy of pleasure. The days and nights of debauchery ensued. Every pleasure was provided, every sense indulged, until even every royal visitor began to be sated. After one particularly lavish feast, he went out into the night garden, and the night wind was cool and fragrant with perfumes so exquisite the king had to know its source. So he began to follow the mysterious scented pathway till he saw a faint glow. As he drew closer, he stumbled into a small clearing where radiance dazzled him, shading his eyes. The king could just make out the form of Darima's slave seated on a jeweled throne and attended by 15 girls of unearthly beauty. He fell back into the shadows, amazed at what he had seen. And then he ran back to the temple, calling out for Darima. Blindfolding her, he took her hand and said he had something incredible to show her. And she followed. Freeing her eyes, then she gasped in astonishment and fell to her knees before her former slave, filled with remorse because she had failed to perceive his true nature. "Forgive me," she said, prostrating herself. "I have made a terrible mistake in not seeing you for the saint that you are. I have abused you, I have sinned. Please find it in your heart to pardon me and remain with us as our priest." The slave king levitated into the sky. "You are forgiven," he said. "I thank you for your offer, but my service is for all the suffering people on earth." Everyone there that night became his disciple, and he gave them instructions. The master became known as the Guru Darikapa, the whore's slave. For many years he served the people selflessly, and when he was assumed bodily into the paradise of the Dakinis, 700 attendants rose with him. So this is a little bit similar to the renunciation that we see of Buddha Shakyamuni when he did that. And even the Christian connection, if you will, to this was that Jesus once said, "Anyone who wants to be first must be last, and the servant of all." Indeed, a bodhisattva. So another connection is the different forms of a bodhisattva that they may take. One is as a king who leads first. The second one is as a boatman who goes at the same time. And the third one is as a shepherd who follows behind. And so in this case we see the intention of following behind. So this is a great story for us, one of the great Mahasiddhas.